Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Laith, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, all well, and welcome, Assalamu alaikum, to our viewers which have joined us again for another live Quranic show. This week we'll be going more into depth into Surah Al-Hujurat. We'll be exploring some of the tafsir from the study Quran, going into some of the tajweed, and reflecting between ourselves on some of the verses, inshallah. We've got Imam Adam with us, and he'll be guiding us throughout the way, and we'll get started, inshallah. So I'll move on here, share my screen. I think we were on verse. Were we on? I think either verse 14 or 15.
15.
15, yes. Cool. So I think we'll carry on the format from last time, inshallah. We can start off with the reading and then explore the tafsir afterwards, inshallah.
All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. Indeed, the true believers are the ones who have faith in Allah and His Messenger, and they do not have doubt. وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ, they are the ones who struggle with their possessions, their wealth. وَأَنفُسِهِمْ, themselves. فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, in the path of Allah. أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ, they are the ones who are true. They are the ones who are honest and have integrity and are true to their belief and their faith. And this is compared to the verse before, in verse 14, where we talked about the Islam and the Iman of the Bedouins, if you recall, that the Bedouins, they said we believe, but actually they have submitted, and they do not yet believe. And then Allah describes who the believers actually are. So in the previous verse, you had people claiming to believe when actually they do not yet believe fully, but they have submitted to Islam. They have submitted to Allah and His Messenger, but they have not fully believed yet. It has not taken hold in their hearts fully. And so we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
In terms of the commentary, let me go ahead and read that. Or at least you can read that. Go ahead.
I think I've got it. Yeah, no worries. Jump into that. So this is from the study Quran, verse 15. So after verse 14, which I think you mentioned as well, rebuked those who claim belief without attaining it. This verse emphasizes the steadfast nature of true faith and the depth of commitment it entails. While the previous verse emphasizes obedience, this verse emphasizes belief. Those who strive with their wealth and themselves in the way of Allah. And those are those who are willing to give everything for the sake of seeking God's pleasure. They are truthful in their claim to believe, unlike the members of Banu Asad who claim belief only outwardly. So that's the tafsir from the study Quran. So yeah, we do see those links back with the previous verse. One thing I do like is how it mentions. I think I'm trying to remember where I heard this, but essentially it's how when you identify as Muslim, it's in that kind of outward declaration. It's more a declaration that you're on that journey rather than at the destination. It's like you're all sailboats and we're all kind of sailing towards the same direction. And being a Muslim, saying you're a Muslim, is just having that sail up, that you're going to catch the wind that comes your way to push you towards the right direction. And that's what being outwardly a Muslim is. And that's kind of, I do see the acknowledgement of that here.
I think there's another issue, there's another challenge here where in the previous verse it comes about because these Bedouins, they are seeking wealth, right? They're seeking wealth, whereas Allah says the true believers, they do not seek wealth. based upon their faith, but their faith actually helps them to encourages them to give from their own wealth instead of using their faith to seek wealth, which is a beautiful thing. That a sign of iman is to give from your wealth, and to give from your time, and to give from yourself, and to be generous in Allah's path. And what is Allah's path? Allah's path is every good thing, right? Allah's path is every good thing. So you find yourself being generous to others in every good thing with your wealth, and not using iman as a way to seek wealth, but using your iman as a way to distribute wealth, then this is part of the signs of truth. These are the signs of true belief.
Jazakallah khair. Beautiful. Should we move on to verse 16?
Yeah.
Bismillah.
قل أتعلمون الله بدينكم والله يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض والله بكل شيء عليم. قل, say, أتعلمون الله بدينكم, will you teach Allah about your religion? Here it means your level of religion. بدينكم, with the level of your religion. والله يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض, when He is the one who knows whatever is in the heavens and the earth. والله بكل شيء عليم, and He has full knowledge of all things. Alim means all knowing of all things. So in this, it's not to teach Allah about the religion, but about your level of religion. So they are claiming to be true believers, and so Allah is saying, do you claim to tell Allah what your belief level is? Because Allah knows everything.
I think that was I think I was confused for a bit there. I think I got the first meaning of what you mentioned there for a moment. I think I interpreted that as, would you teach Allah about Islam? But the actual meaning is related. It's still connected to the previous verses of, well, would you tell Allah declare what's inside of you in terms of your Islam rather than the religion of Islam? That's a good clarification. I kind of slipped through. If you just read the translation without any further context, I think it's easy to slip into that. I think the hadith says this again. So the verse asks, the verse asks, would you propose to tell God what lies within you when nothing is hidden from Him? And that's a different translation of it. So I guess translation to translation, that can change. Or more specifically, are you going to declare that you have faith when God knows that you do not know? More generally, this verse can be understood to mean that one should maintain a sense of humility when speaking of religious matters.
There's also one of the things is the harf B, right? The harf B. أتعلمون الله دينكم. If it said أتعلمون الله دينكم without the B, then it would mean that first meaning, which is, are you teaching Allah the religion? In the more literal fashion. But when you say bidinikum, that means, are you telling him the level of your religion? Are you trying to tell him or inform him what your iman is, when he actually already knows your iman and knows much more than that?
It's just one of those nuances of Arabic language. Actually, I missed that. So we're attaching your religion to yourself with the ba.
Yeah, so it's talking about the level of religion with the ba. And here, I mean, do we see this in our times? We do see people, making claims about their level of religion. And it's important to be careful about the claims we make about our religion, or our level of religion, rather, because Allah is the one who truly knows. Human beings, they can only see the external. And a lot of times we focus on the external so much. We see, a sister was complaining, convert sister, she converted to Islam, and people are very rushing to educate her about her appearance, about the things that she does on an outward level. But inwardly, she had very nice character and had very strong iman. But people focused a lot on the outward things because those are the things that are apparent. أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ. But do not try to tell yourself that just because you do these external things, that somehow the internal iman is there, right?
Mm.
But you need both. Yes, there are some external things you should do to be amongst the Muslims, to be among the believers, but the most important things are as-sidq, right? Integrity, honesty, being true to iman, having iman in your heart, making sure that it is something which is part of your life, having a backbone, being able to stand up against oppression, against injustice, right? You can do all of the outward things, but if you can't stand
Mm.
against oppression, then what use is all those outward things? You can
Mm.
pray your salah in the masjid 5 times a day, but then if you go and you cheat and you lie, then what benefit did the outward things do if the inward things have not really settled? So, أَتُعَلِّمُونَ اللَّهَ بِدِينِكُمْ. You can't teach Allah what your level of deen is. You cannot tell Allah what your level of deen is. He already knows.
Is there any way is there any verses that from the Quran that can tell us a way for us to know our level of deen, or indications of, or is it one of those things that we will never know, but Allah will always have knowledge of? It's one of those things that you'll have to wait to the end, to the day of judgment, to actually see the truth of.
Yeah, of course. You can do the actions that Allah recommends you to do, and we see that in the previous verse. The previous verse talks about what the believers do,
Mm.
right? Who are the believers? If you scroll up to verse 15 again, just to remind ourselves, what does it say? They are the ones who believe in Allah and His Messenger. They do not have any doubt, and
Mm.
strive in Allah's path with their wealth and their belongings. So are you someone who strives in the path of Allah with your wealth and yourself?
Mm.
Because that is what iman means. So
Subhanallah.
you can't know what Allah's take on you is until the day of judgment, what Allah's judgment on you is. But you can pursue the actions of the people of belief, and the people of belief, they struggle in Allah's way with their wealth and their selves. They
Mm.
do not have a passive approach to their belief, but they have an active approach to their belief. They do not ask what can their faith do for them. They ask
Mm.
what can they do for their faith. What can they do for Islam? Not what can Islam do for them.
Mm. It reminds me of, well, in Islam we kind of have a very, each believer in its own right has their unique ability to connect with Allah, compared to in some other religions or traditions is a very hierarchical system. I know I heard about Scientology one time, if you want to call that a religion. I'm not quite sure what it is. Um, and the way that you kind of go up levels, and you have to donate certain amounts to reach certain levels, and you basically get assigned a name of rank each level of faith, essentially. It's like the polar opposite of this. They say, oh, supreme XYZ, level of faith, and you can assign a number to it. But in reality, it's again, it's still a human created arbitrary system of what level of faith are you. It's just other humans telling other humans what level of faith are you. But again, we clarified here, no one can tell you that. You can't tell yourself that. Nobody else outside can tell you that. You're going to have to wait until the day of judgment to actually get a real assessment of what your internal faith was. Your only concern is just to make sure that you can strive in the way that being instructed to in the previous verse. But yeah, Jazakallah khair. Should we move on to verse 17?
Yeah, let's do it.
Bismillah.
يمنون عليك أن أسلموا قل لا تمنوا علي إسلامكم بل الله يمن عليكم أن هداكم للإيمان إن كنتم صادقين. They think that they have done you, O Prophet, a favor by submitting. Say, do not consider your submission a favor to me. It is Allah who has done you a favor by guiding you to Iman, to faith, if you are truly sincere. So the same word is used of submission. They think they have done you, O Prophet, a favor by submitting. Again, the first level, which is just plain submission. But actually, you have only done yourself a favor by, at least you have only done yourself a favor, and it is actually Allah who has done you a favor by
Mm.
guiding you. Um, and so you must understand that.
Jazakallah khair. I'll go through the study Quran tafsir as well. So the Banu Asad count their submission as a favor because, unlike other tribes, they submitted without fighting, or because when they entered Islam, they came with goods and families, and that they would think this way demonstrates that they had still not grasped the principles of belief and continue to think of their pledge to the Prophet as if it were another tribal allegiance. Um, they should not count their submission as a favor on a practical level because they came to Medina with needs resulting from the drought. They should also not do so from a religious perspective because God and the Prophet have no need of them. Rather, it is they who are in need of God and the guidance He provides through His Prophet. More generally, this verse can be understood as a continuation of the discussion in verse 7 to 8, and thus as a reminder that all belief and all guidance is a favor from God.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful idea, isn't it? And also an
Mm,
important distinction to make, that we should never put faith in a place where someone doing or acting upon it becomes a favor. And this is
mm,
something which, as a parent, I see parents doing. And
yeah,
there's even an inclination towards it, and you have to be careful where you start treating Iman or Islam as a favor to from the child.
yeah,
So for example, if you do this, then you will get this reward because you have done me
mm,
this favor of completing this Islamic action. Now, is
yeah,
it good to reward your children for Islamic actions? Sure, but the intention behind it really matters. Don't make it as if to be that, oh, this is a favor that you're doing for Allah, or this is a favor that you're doing for the parent that you did Islam, but actually
yeah,
it's for your own good. And you do not benefit Allah in any way when you do Islam. It is actually for your own benefit. And we should not make Islam a punishment. We should not say, if you don't go to bed right now, I'm sending you to Quran class.
oh
And
no,
make Quran class a punishment, as a reverse favor. Just do me
yeah,
this one thing, and I won't give you this punishment because you do me a favor by going to Quran class, right? So this is very important when how we're raising our children. What parents become so desperate as the kids get into teenage years, if they haven't set the proper foundation, that please just do this for me as a favor.
mm,
And the child does it, saying, "Look, mom and dad, I've done you this favor. I've done this Islamic thing." But this is actually not iman. This is just Islam. I've submitted for this temporary moment, but
mm,
you do not earn any praise for submitting to the truth. Actually, you should be grateful to Allah for having guided you. And
mm,
yet, many people will appreciate that level of Islam later on. So I remember I asked, what is one of your best memories about Ramadan? And
yeah,
one brother, he said, in my masjid, he said that my parents, they forced me to come to Taraweeh.
yeah,
I said that, and he was talking about, at the beginning, it was just Islam. I was just
yeah,
submitting to my parents. My parents were like, you must go to Taraweeh, right? You
mm,
must go to Taraweeh. And then somehow, with the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it takes root. It takes root in the heart, and you begin to love it, and you begin to love Islam, and you begin to love Iman. And what is that? What is that? What does that go back to? It goes back to the verses that came before, as the tafsir mentioned, verse 7,
mm,
8, where Allah said, حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُم, that He made Iman beloved to you, and He made it beautiful in your heart. So it became apparent. When Allah makes it beautiful in your heart, that means it became apparent within you. Look at this beautiful character. Look at this beautiful human being. How did they
mm,
become that? It is a result of the iman that they have in their heart. So that being another example of how do you go from Islam to iman is active guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's something which you pursue, you do the right actions, you pursue the right external, actions, in the hopes that Allah will upgrade you, Allah will promote you from mere
Mm,
Islam, mere submission, to the level of faith and conviction, to where you do not have doubt, and you give from yourself to Allah's way with your wealth and yourself.
100%. Jazakallah khair. It's funny that I feel like I remember a few occasions in past now that you raised it of but not never in a like a I think alhamdulillah never in like a we're never with a negative connotation like do this for me as your parents, like you're doing this for Allah, you're doing this for your Islam more than anybody else's. But I can ask maybe you this as a parent. How do you strike that balance? Surely that's such a difficult balance to strike. Is like you I guess part of it is because you find it important, you can impart that importance to your kids without necessarily having the whole background necessary. Like say the you have the belief, but not the I think what was the two words we've been using? The iman and the it's like the submission and the Islam and the iman. Is that what we've been using?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So I think maybe as a but when you first use that, this is something important. Like salah is something important. You need to pray, and you start with that iman. But how can you? I guess a question to you: how do you strike that balance between trying not to make them do something? That it's serious. I'm doing this because mum and dad take it seriously, so I'm doing it to please them, and kind of establishing enough groundwork for that iman to take hold as well. Um, when I was younger, I used to get told, and I think I say this in a positive light only. That if you would not finish all the food on your plate, that was something punishable. Sometimes with some dramatic imagery, but and at the time it was like okay, really got to finish like all the food at dinner. But now today, like I have a profound, I still like don't leave like a single rice on the plate because it's like something that was built in from earlier, and now I see that as a level of iman and appreciation for what's given and not being wasteful. Um, so anyway, yeah, I'll stop babbling and ask you how maybe you try to take that balance a bit.
I think there will be moments where you kind of have to keep motivating through the Islam piece, which is the submission piece, right?
Mm,
Uh, like, hey, this is just something we have to do. There will be those days. There will
yeah.
be those days where your child wakes up and says, I don't want to go.
Mm,
Right? And you just have to say, hey, you have to submit, you know?
yeah.
I'm not gonna, I'm not going to abuse you to go, right? I'm going to investigate. Is there something wrong that makes you
Mm,
not want to go? Um, but just feeling like you don't want to go is not enough, right? Um, because you have to see things through. You have to be committed to things in order to see an outcome, in order to see a result. Because we want to build resilience in our children. We don't want them to be so easily giving up on things. We want them to feel challenged. We want them to feel some sense of difficulty, because relatively we live, alhamdulillah, easy, comfortable lives. There's people being bombed. There's people dying literally in the streets of Gaza right now as we speak.
mm,
There's people being shot in Bangladesh, right? Our lives here where we are, we're being able to discuss Quran like this is a big luxury, big privilege, a big comfort. And so just reminding our kids that things that we do are difficult sometimes, and we do difficult things because it makes us stronger and it helps us to appreciate what we have. And one of those things that's difficult is sticking to a course that we have undertaken. Uh,
mm,
so yes, there will be those days where you have to push through the carrot, and the stick. And by the stick, I don't mean a literal stick, right?
yeah.
Because we should not associate Islam with the stick. But what I mean by the stick is simply, more pushing, more enforcing. There will be some days like that, and it also depends on the temperament of of the parent. If the
Mm,
parent is not getting enough sleep, then that's going to affect how they parent, right? But getting back to your question, how do you do it? I think it's also important to take a moment and just explain what we've explained here,
mm,
right? yeah, I'm going to reward you when you complete this memorization of this surah. Um, but I don't want you to think that you have done Allah a favor. Because when you memorize a surah, guess who it's good for first and foremost? And let them answer. Guess who it's good for first and foremost? Who is it good for?
Mm.
And they will say, it's good for me. It's good for me first. It's good for your parents secondarily, just because they taught you. It's good for your teacher secondarily, because they taught you the surah. Everyone has a stake in the game. Allah has given us all skin in the game in that way. We all get
Yeah.
some reward. But the primary benefactor is you, because you will use the surah for the rest of your life in your salah. You will learn these surahs and teach them to your children. You will have a connection to Allah through the Quran. When you are hurt and injured and you need help from Allah, then the Quran will be healing when you memorize the surah. So just giving them that, taking that moment to give them a khutbah, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
Maybe I do khutbahs all the time, so maybe that's my solution to everything. Hammer sees a nail everywhere he goes. But this is called, in teaching, we call this a teachable moment. You have a
Yeah.
moment, your child is complaining. Just don't, yeah, sometimes you're in a hurry, you got things going on, you're like, hey, let's just go, we'll talk about this later. And
Yeah.
after the Quran class, after dinner, everyone's settled, you have a quiet moment. Now you say, let's go back. Today you didn't want to go to Quran class. What was about it that you didn't want to go? Okay, well, listen, this is why we go. This is a favor, not from us, but actually to us from Allah, that He guided
Mm.
us to the Quran, that He gave us the Quran, that He gave us this ability. And this is how you explain to your children when things are calm. A lot of times, if we try to explain in very heated moments or tense moments or stressful moments where we don't have a lot of time, then it actually backfires because the child gets unnecessarily stressed.
Mm.
So not every moment is a teachable moment, but you can record the moment and then handle it when things are calm. At least this is the ideal way to do it. It doesn't always work out that way, but alhamdulillah, Allah is forgiving and our
Alhamdulillah.
children are forgiving to a degree. So we seek forgiveness from Allah. We seek forgiveness from our children when we make mistakes or we're too intense, and then we come back and we do it again, inshallah. We teach them what it means to to seek forgiveness, and we teach them what it means to make mistakes, and that this is okay and no one is perfect. But خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, insan has been created weak.
Mm.
However, we do our best and we seek the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
100%. Jazakallah khair. I should be writing these tips down just to keep them all. Have kids eventually. I'll go back to my Imam Adam chat and see what
Yes, you can.
what he
Well,
said.
actually, this is recorded on YouTube, so you
Actually, yeah,
can
I'll go back to. I'll say what is
you can
what I,
timestamp
yeah.
it.
Have some like really heated moments. Like okay, teachable moment. No, I think it is true though. I think there is a point. There is a degree of not necessarily just because you're a kind of sheikh, so you give khutbas, but I think in parenting I do feel there is a level of you are the one, you are seen as a source of answers, and that
Yeah,
you kind of you need to be, you need to khutbah sometimes, especially when it
that's
comes to
fine. That's fine. كلكم راع, right? Each of you is a shepherd. So your father is a shepherd, and the mother is a shepherd, and the
mm,
grandparent is a shepherd, and the uncle is a shepherd, and the aunt is a shepherd, right?
very
So
true.
all of us are shepherds in our own ways. Um, and even if you don't have your own kids, you can practice on your nieces and nephews and
Very
their
true.
parents. As long as it's a good thing, then their parents will appreciate that, inshallah.
Yeah. That's very true. You could be doing khutbahs on the completely wrong subjects. Then their uncles won't be so appreciative. Anyway,
There you
we'll
go.
move on to verse 18, inshallah. I think this is the last verse. Yeah, this is the last
This
verse.
is the last verse.
Cool.
All right.
Bismillah.
إن الله يعلم غيب السماوات والأرض والله بصير بما تعملون. Allah knows the secrets of the heavens and the earth, and He sees everything that you do. So concluding the surah here and reconnecting it to both the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He truly knows our level of Islam, our level of Iman, our commitment to Islam, our commitment to the brotherhood of believers, as this surah talked about, the brotherhood of believers. Wallahu basirun bima ta'malun, and he sees everything you do. So he knows your inside and he knows your outside. He sees the things that you do. And this verse talked about the things that we do, how the Sahaba treat the messenger, how you treat Allah and his messenger in your life, in your heart, in your actions, in your words. He knows all these things that you do, how you treat others, which Surah Al-Hujurat started out by talking about, how you treat each other, talked about brotherhood and how not to, spy on each other and not to backbite each other and not to mock each other and not to call each other names and so on. So he sees the things that you do and he knows your information as well. And so this is kind of a beautiful verse to tie everything together and to bring it back to the essential points of Allah's knowledge of our hearts and our minds and our deeds.
And I think that's, I can read through the tafsir as well. So the elsewhere, God is known to be the knower of the unseen and the seen. But this is one of only 2 verses to assert that God knows the unseen of the heavens and the earth. In the context of this surah, it also indicates that God knows the true depths of one's faith. So I'm surprised. I feel like I would have heard Allah being mentioned as the knower of the unseen and the seen. What is the other verse with that in it? Is it? I might be incorrect, but is it?
Surah 35. It says Surah 35, verse 38. So if you want to scroll to that, you can find out where it says that.
I am tempted. Yeah. 35. Actually, I'll just go here. Where's my tab? But it sounds like something that's maybe it's just one of those things that are so profound that it just kind of sticks quite a bit, and that's why it feels like I've heard it more than twice.
38.
Oh, 38. 38. God knows all that is hidden in the heavens and the earth. He knows the thoughts contained in the heart. Very interesting. I don't know why I thought I heard that in Ayatul Kursi. I think that's similar verses in Ayatul Kursi.
That is lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth. So that is talking about his mulk, about his ownership and his kingdom and his sovereignty. What he is sovereign over is over everything. He is the owner of everything. And so that's what sort of Ayatul Kursi talks about.
Okay, that's where I'm getting confused. Okay. So was there any reflections on this? As in, I think I always found it interesting when I first heard this, as in, I think you did it when you're explaining it, how it kind of starts, the start and the big end of every, it like goes it's like a circular motion. So like it moves from the start, the first subject is usually repeated in the last, the second is usually repeated in the second to last verse, and so on and so forth. And that goes in each chapter, and then each, like that pattern repeats across each verse and each chapter and each, I don't know what the other one was, but that's one of the things I found fascinating, which we found here as well. But I guess it's just driving the message home for the rest of the surah. A lot of the stuff mentioned in Surah Al-Hujurat is stuff that is really quite. It's not stuff that the rest of society is going to call you out on, like ghiba, in the sense that it's something that as a human without Islam would think I can get away with this because nobody's gonna say it. It's only me and the person I'm doing ghiba with, the person I'm doing ghiba about. Nobody's gonna know. I can backbite my brother. And the same thing with having a level of presumption of faith. It's one of those many things we don't really face repercussions for. Well, we do face repercussions for, but we assume that we don't in our actions. So I get it. It's just that nailing down of that. Even if you think that you're not being accounted for, you are. I don't know if this is kind of related. I think when I saw the second verse, he knows everything in your heart. I think I heard recently. I know it's a very obvious thing, but something I just reflected on a little bit was that even so, your salat being a physical movement, and a lot of people will do their salat doing a physical movement, but just do the physical, and their mind is like completely gone. Like their mind is like somewhere completely unrelated to the salat, whether it's work, school, like anything but salat is what's on the mind. But I had a reflection is like, even if you were to do that, it really doesn't. It's not like Allah is like, oh, he's praying, you know. Like the movement is there, so I guess it's valid. Like it's the only person you're hurting is yourself. But B, even if you were doing that and your mind is way off somewhere, it doesn't necessarily. It does impact your the acceptance of your salah, because you're praying to a being, if you would call it, um, that would know where your mind is in any case. So it does actually. You have to be. It's something you do actually really have to be conscious of and quash as you go. As you're praying, you gotta, as those distractions come, just try to quash them in some way. I think I found a really beautiful analogy of when you take your shoes off before you go in the masjid. Leave your problems with the shoes. And just there's some people, they have like a person which will take them. Just leave it with the shoe take. The shoe guy, which will go and take the shoes and put it away. For that moment, leave your problems with Allah before you enter that masjid, enter that state of salat, and just put them aside. Let the master of the universe deal with your problems, rather than just letting them just continue going around and around your head through all of salat. I know it sounds like a very obvious thing, like your thoughts impact your salat's acceptance, but I think unless you have a real profound realization that there is, your brain is really just kind of a glass sphere for a being like Allah. It's not something you take into account.
Yeah, beautiful reflection. Yeah, leave it with your shoes. That's a good one.
Thank you.
There's also, as a part of the salah, when we say Allahu Akbar,
Mm,
it's like we're saying we're throwing everything behind us. Right? We're
mm,
throwing all of our thoughts behind us. By putting our hands up, we're throwing everything behind us. And we're
mm,
saying Allah is Akbar. Akbar means greater.
mm.
Allahu Akbar means Allah is greater. Greater than what? Fill in the blank.
Yep.
So you're thinking of some thought, right? You say Allahu Akbar, erase that thought because Allah is greater than that thought. You're
Mm,
distracted by something, Allah is greater than that distraction. You're upset by something, Allah is greater than what you're upset about. Allah is greater than what you're stressed about. Allah is greater than what you're angry about. Allah is
mm,
greater than all of those things, right? And you see that. You see that in the hadith of the man of paradise, right? Who Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As followed him home,
mm,
stayed with him for 3 days, and said, "How come I don't see you fasting more or praying more?" And the Messenger of Allah said, "You are a man of paradise."
mm,
And he said, "I don't know." And then he thought about it and he said, "One thing I do is I remove from my heart any hatred or malice I have towards anyone
yep.
every night."
Wow.
And Abdullah said, "That's what it is. هذه هي. That's what it is,
Subhanallah.
right? That's what it is." Um, and the man said, "I also remove any envy from my heart,"
Mm,
right?
Subhanallah.
So he removes any envy from his heart and any hatred from his heart. And he says, "I remove any envy from anyone about anyone to what Allah has given them." Right. So he attributes whatever someone has, he attributes it to Allah, and he
Mm,
removes the envy from his heart. And Abdullah responded, he says, "This is what it is,
yep.
and وَهَذِهِ هِيَ الَّتِي لَا نُطِيقُ." And it is the thing that we are not capable of. Right?
Yeah.
This thing that we are not capable of, right? Salah, you can make it, right? It's an action, you can do it. Fasting, it's an action, you can do it. Everyone can fast, everyone can pray salah. Everyone cannot remove hatred and envy from their heart, and they find it la nutiq. We don't have the strength for it. It takes pure strength to be able to do that. And we
Yeah.
live in the age of envy, right? Because of social media, we live in the age of envy, the age of comparison, and it has taken all of our joy.
Yeah.
It takes all of our joy, social media. So we have to be careful how we use social media. I mean, we're using it right now, technically YouTube, but
That's
inshallah, we're
yeah.
using it for a good, with good intention. We're using it for
Inshallah.
something good, inshallah, and not to show off and not to cause envy or instigate envy in others,
Mm.
um, but rather to hopefully do the opposite, hopefully, and help people to remove envy from their hearts and to remove hatred from their hearts, and bring togetherness in their families and togetherness in their lives.
So with social media, on the note of kind of seeing that envy everywhere, I feel like today there's not, as I'll speak from personal experience. I don't have many people I actually know on social media anymore. Like I don't really see friends or family. Like I don't. I guess the envy that I guess would come from is even people now you don't even know. You're envious of people you don't know across the globe. Like, oh, this random guy in some random country has a Lamborghini. Like, okay.
And it might not even be his. He might have found it on the
It's like,
street and took a picture with it.
yeah,
So it's
or
all
they
an illusion.
it
It's all
is.
an illusion, you know.
It's not even real
But
envy.
shaitan grows it in the heart. Shaitan, unfortunately, once an idea is in the heart, then shaitan, he blasts it to everything, right? He
Mm.
takes it to its extreme.
But one,
Everyone has Lamborghinis. What am I doing with my life? you know, everyone doesn't have Lamborghinis, brother. Mashallah. So
but it's
um,
so I do feel one thing that I need to be careful of. I'll speak personally is you'll go on like Twitter or you'll go on. I think this happens a lot on Twitter, to be honest with you. And it's a lot of people. There's a lot of people which are you know I see lots of anti-Muslim people, and then I see all the Muslims fighting with the anti-Muslim people, and then there's this going on, and the racists on this, and there's just so much fighting going on there. It's almost completely distracting from any sort of personal, you know, um, like you're so concerned. The people that don't like the Muslims are so concerned with how the Muslims are practicing, but they don't like how they practice anyway. And then the non-Muslims are Muslims are so supremely concerned with how all the non-Muslims are not practicing, and it's almost so distracting as to anyone's actual personal, iman and faith. That's what we mentioned earlier. It's like, oh well, I'm this, I'm this. They don't just declare I'm this ex-Muslim and I'm better than you, but they just kind of imply by saying how everyone else is doing everything wrong all the time, and it's just like just swirls of it constantly on social media. It can get quite consuming. I saw a lot of it, kind of, with the Olympics and the opening ceremony, and it's just the Christians arguing, "Oh, do this with Islam," and then the Muslims arguing, "Oh, your best comeback is do this with Islam," and it's just kind of it is like interesting, but it is kind of just bickering, to be honest with you. As in nobody's actually doing anything about it. Everyone's just kind of bickering on Twitter about it, and like you're just looking at it like getting worked up over absolutely nothing, over things you don't even know about, on people you haven't even seen, and like you're just getting worked up over it. And you're in the meanwhile, like you've spent zero of that energy actually working on anything which would have improved your own Islam in this kind of any positive manner, and you've just kind of thrown it away. So that's kind of my experience with social media these days. It's just a lot more kind of stuff that just makes you angry for no reason than anything, like even of oh, look at my friend. Like even that would be nicer at this point. Look at my friend, look what they're doing. Would be nice, just getting angry for no reason at like X, Y, or Z.
I
Definitely.
think I think France is gonna France, right? To give you my hot take, France is gonna France.
Yeah.
I don't think you expect anything, more or less from France, and how they treat, religion, and how they treat
Mm.
people of religion. So it's not anything surprising. As someone who lived in France for a couple of years,
Oh wow.
it's nothing surprising. But it's but we should bring to attention their, civil rights abuses of,
Mm,
taking away things that we really take for granted in other countries. For example, the hijab
mm. So true.
in public places and in schools that has been banned, which is really, really crazy. So France as a whole, is are hypocrites, right, in how they do
Mm,
things. But in terms of your feed, yeah, people have to control their feeds. People have to
so true.
just curate their feeds on social media. They have to be like, this is what I want. I do not want this. Click the three
Yeah.
dots, say I don't want any
You have,
more of
yeah.
this. You know, the feed
It's
is giving you what is getting your attention. So if you spend 30 seconds on a France video, guess what? You're gonna get a lot
more
more France videos.
the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, very
uh,
true. I think it's all because I was trying to get more like up to date with like when we had the elections, there was like big Muslim vote movements, and there was a lot of like new
yeah,
Muslim organizations popping
yeah.
up and Muslim figures coming and speaking more about like UK politics. It's been an interesting period, I think, just before the well, actually since I would say
Yeah, I
what's been
mean,
happening in
because we're
America.
globalized, right? There's always going to be something, right? If not
Yeah,
this, then
that's
that. If
true.
not this, then that. If not this, then that. And so it's always going to happen. But I think it's we're seeing that people are not wanting to be silent on issues that are important to them, like this one. This is an
Yeah,
important issue where people want to see their religion respected. Um, and they want to see that. But to be honest, from France, I don't know how you could expect anything different from them. That's just how they are.
as in I
Um,
thought,
you
yeah,
know,
I thought Christianity maybe would have been safe from that. As in, it's not safe here. I
oh
can tell
no,
you from my experience in the UK, it's like it's like it seems to be it's target number one unless it's against Islam. So like if you're like trying to diss Islam, you sometimes they use Christianity and say, oh, this is a Christian country. Otherwise, it's like otherwise Christianity is fair game. And for us as Muslims, it's just like what's going on? Like why don't we just respect Islam, respect Christianity, just leave them alone. It's like, why do we have to make these kind of political statements out of it? But yeah, as in we're just kind of sitting back and kind of going, well, why did you have to? Why do
I
you
mean,
have to? Why do you
The Quran says la tasubbu, right? Don't insult the gods of the other religions,
have
because
to?
then they will insult Allah. Okay,
Yeah,
so what that tells me is two things. Number one, don't do that specific thing. But number
yeah,
two, outcomes of what you do is important. Like,
mm,
the reason why it's not allowed in the Quran is because there is an outcome, there is a result to that, and the direct result is the insulting of your own God.
mm,
And so looking at the results of your actions is important. It's not just about the intention, it's not just about the action. A lot of times we do things without considering what is the impact or the result of this going to be.
mm,
Right? And this is something which the Mufti has to take into account when giving fatwa. What
mm,
is going to be the impact and the outcome of this fatwa? You can't just give it based on a vacuum of the evidence is in front of you from Quran and Sunnah, but you have to look at, well, what is the impact of this fatwa going to be, and
yeah,
then you can only then should you and you should adapt your fatwa to what the outcome will actually be in real circumstances. That is why you can't take a fatwa from a different time or even a different place, even if it's in the same time.
yeah,
You know, I was speaking to a taxi driver in Mecca, and I
yeah,
was like, "Yeah, our masjid has a gym," and to him it was incomprehensible. He's like, "A masjid, the house of Allah, having a gym? What is this? This is ridiculous. This is haram." You know, but
yeah,
if you know, you know. Like, if you live in
yeah,
Mecca, you live in relative privilege. You live in front of the haram, right?
yeah,
Like, well, how much better? It doesn't get better than that. And then if you live in a far off corner where there's no Muslims, and you need a place for your kids to get together and meet other Muslims,
yeah,
you understand right away. Like,
yes, yeah,
you don't need a fatwa to tell you that this is something you need. But the fatwa should be different. So you can't use the
mm,
fatwa from there, even if it's coming from the holiest place on earth, right? You can't use the
mm,
understanding there on your understanding here. So it is going to be different, because the sensibilities are different, the outcomes are different. So we have to look at what is the outcome of our actions at the end of the day. Don't insult
mm,
their gods, because they will insult Allah. Don't do
mm.
this because this will be the result.
100%. That's yeah. Well, the second you said that, I was like, oh, you guys got a gym? Well, maybe one day we'll get one of those. As good as in, it's just one of those things we have challenges with. As it's one of community is like a huge problem we face. It's not like everyone we know is someone we can connect with like that. We have to build these spaces. I'm always inspired, if I'm being honest with you. There's a insane Jewish community in Hove, which is quite near to me. They've got a lovely place. You can book an Airbnb there. There's a synagogue. There's a gym. There's a co-working space. There's there's apartments. Like every area of life, they've got covered for the community. So as a community, they're always bumping into each other. They're like very tight knit. They've got their own like shops in their own apartments. So it's like as for us to model this as a Muslim community also living in the West, it's kind of I think it's a similar thing we're trying to achieve is we're trying to build this space for the whole community. We have all these different needs living in the West, like having something like a halal butcher on site. That's great. We don't, it's not like everywhere we go, it's like easy peasy. So no, definitely 100%. Gym in the mosque is something I've seen quite a bit, but we don't have one. No gym at our mosque, unfortunately.
And I'll end with this. I think we're out of time here, but I gave a khutbah 2 weeks ago about Abdul Sattar Idi, who was a philanthropist, not a wealthy philanthropist, mind you, in Pakistan, and he started the world's largest volunteer ambulance service in the world. And I said largest in the world twice, but his largest ambulance volunteer service in the world. And he started with one rickety, broken down van that he turned into an ambulance to get people to a hospital where they could live. And he lived an extraordinary life. And now that foundation, he's passed away. May Allah have mercy on him. And now there's 1,800 ambulances in his thing. So, you have to have a vision. You have to start somewhere. If Allah has put an idea in your mind, Laith, then you have to act on that idea. You can't have a savior mentality. No one's coming to save you other than you. I was looking at there's this interesting list online. It's called Hijra list. Where should Muslims migrate to? Hijra list.
Oh wow!
And the top two is like Istanbul.
Yeah.
And then Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas is on there, and they were not on the Hijra list 10 years ago or 20 years ago when I was studying. People were making Hijra to Saudi or to Egypt. No one was going to Dallas. No one was going to Turkey at the time. But the right people came. They had a vision. They built something. And now it's a place where people want to go. So you can't have a short-term vision. You have to have a long-term vision. You have to present it to the people. You have to say, if they can do it, we can do it. If the synagogue can do it, the masjid can do it easily, inshallah, or the same percentage of population. Yeah. And then you will find that people will flock, inshallah. Who doesn't want to live by the coast? Who doesn't want to live by the coast and also have halal options? Lower cost of living than London. You got to sell it. You got to sell it, brother.
Very true. Lower cost of living in London is changing, but yeah, very true. To be honest with you, sometimes I think I'm more privileged than I think I am. Sometimes I actually do have 2 halal butchers within 2-minute walk of my flat. So I'll be quiet for now. Actually, for as long as I've got, there's a lot of places which don't have 2 halal butchers within about 2 minutes. So if there's no chicken at one place, I just walk across the road. I just go get chicken at another place. So anyway,
exactly.
Just like a lock. No, I thank you for that. I think that's everything. I think if we have enough time, I can just run through a couple of announcements briefly. We just have 2, I think. So I think we mentioned this in the last few weeks. We have a new feature called Quran Clips. And what Quran Clips is a way for people on the Quranic app to record their Quran recitations, share it with other people on the app. And it's for you as the audience as well to see other people reading and let that inspire you. It's not, the top readers. Well, inshallah, we'll have the top readers in the world on there. But it's people like you and me that can actually see other people like ourselves reading Quran and see how we can get there. So this is a feature we're currently testing in iOS. If you'd like to join the beta, we do have a reward for doing so as well. There's the link for it. If you join, we have a link, a code that you can use for 1 month free Quranic. And of course, you get to try out the new features before everyone else does and help to build that feature, inshallah, as well. And the other thing, the book is still available on Amazon, the Learn the Quranic Alphabet book. That's now at $15.99. That's a book you can use to actually learn the phonetics of the Arabic alphabet. So especially it's great for those English speakers, speak English first or another language first, going to Arabic. So it actually gives you examples from the English language that can actually help you understand those Arabic phonetics. And the last thing I wanted to mention, something a little different, we have a community on, let me just get rid of these so I can actually just talk here. We have a community on Telegram, and they are running through a new khatma of the Quran. They're quite an active community. We have quite an active community there on Telegram. I did have more notes. Let me just get those up. Just a moment. So we have a new khatma. It started on the Quranic app yesterday, but it will be going up to August 12th, and it's 10 p.m. MST. And that's every day on Sunday, I think. So on Sundays at 10 p.m. MST, there's a live in the Quranic app. So if you download the Quranic app, there is Quran Jam, so you can actually join and read with other people. And we have a live khatma going on until August 12th, and that's organized by our community, for our community, inshallah. And if you join that link I've got there, you should be able to join that community. And there's lots of other stuff on there which you'll be interested to know about if you're on that Quran learning journey. So yeah, I think that's everything. We can wrap up, inshallah. So I think that's everything for this week's Quranic live show. Do give us feedback. If you've signed up for this event, you'll get an email giving us feedback as well. Let us know what you thought. Is there anything else you'd like to include? And we'll have more of this to come in the next Monday, inshallah. Next Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. GMT. All right. I think
Jazakallah khair, Brother Laith.
Jazakallah khair. I think we'll end it here. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights and knowledge. Thank you very much, Sheikh.
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.